Today I'm going to share 4 ways that you can make your crochet or knit handmade scarves longer without needing to do more rows of stitches. Hey crafter, and welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and you are watching Crafters Autonomous. So I just wrapped up a 4-part series where I showed 4 different tassels or fringes you can add to the ends of your handmade scarves, and I thought that I would put together a compilation video showing all the ideas in one video, and also I'm going to share some bonus ideas on all 4 designs so that way you get a little extra content. So we're talking about ways you can lengthen your crochet and knit scarves without doing more rows of stitching, and the way we do this is by adding some kind of fringe or tassel or pom-poms to the ends of our scarves. This is so helpful when you're working on a project, you're trying to use just the one skein, and with one skein you can't quite get long enough, but if you can't really justify buying a second skein just to get a little bit longer. So this is a great solution in that case. It's also an awesome way to add new textures and colors to your handmade scarves, depending on what materials you use to add the extra length. So the first idea is to add a classic fringe. This is what I'm calling the classic fringe. It's just strips of yarn that hang down like tassels, like a fringe, whatever you want to call it. So here I use this pink yarn that I also used further up in the scarf, but if I were to crochet this section, it would take a lot more of the pink yarn than what I use here for the tassels. So it's a great way to stretch your yarn. I think it just looks so cute. It's a very classic design. And especially if you're using the same material as you are already using for your scarf, it's a great way to save money since you don't need to use any additional materials. Personally, I think that this is the easiest and fastest way to add length to your crochet or knit scarves because it really is that simple. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it has to be boring. So I've got a couple ideas of ways you can take this idea even further. One idea would be to use fabric strips to create the tassels. So instead of using lengths of yarn, you would use strips of fabric, and you would use the same method like I showed in the tutorial video for adding the fringe, and that would introduce some new colors, some new textures. And then another idea to customize this is to, instead of using just strips of yarn, is to first chain the pieces of yarn. That would just add some extra dimension, some extra character to it, while still remaining very simple. The second way to make your handmade scarves longer without doing more stitches is to add tassels. I love doing tassels because it's a great way to either dress up or dress down your handmade scarf. So this scarf started off as just a simple gray scarf and just double crochet stitching. So adding the tassels in this funky color made it very cute. This would be adorable for like a little girl scarf. But if I'd used different tassels, I could have just as well dressed up this look. So in the tutorial video for this look, I showed how to make the tassels using yarn, but there's lots of materials you can use to make tassels. So 2 ideas to make your tassels out of different material. One would be to use thread. So you could either use crochet cotton thread, you could use thread like you would use for sewing. That will make a more delicate and refined tassel. Another idea, I haven't tried this, but I think this would be really fun and funky, is to make tassels out of fake leather. So that process is a little bit different than I show how to do the yarn tassels, but I'll try to find a video and link to that in the description on how to make a tassel using leather. That would be really fun to add to the ends of your handmade scarves, and it would definitely add some unique character and a little extra style to it. The third way to add extra length to your crochet and knit scarves without doing more rows of stitching is to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Okay, that doesn't actually make your scarves longer, but I do just want to throw that out there. If you guys would like this video and subscribe to my channel, it helps support me and I appreciate it so much. Okay, so for real, idea number 3 is to add pom-poms. So these pom-poms I made using yarn, and then I used a little chain to attach them. Again, I'll link the tutorial video up in the cards and in the description down below. And when I made these, I went with a totally different yarn than I made the rest of the scarf, and it was a great way to use up this random yarn that I've had sitting for forever. Now, if you don't want to make your own pom-poms, you can of course use pre-made pom-poms from the store. I think they're like chenille pom-poms. That might not be the right word. I'll pop up with a picture or I'll have a link somewhere so you know what I'm talking about. But you know, those pre-made pom-poms versus a yarn handmade pom-pom. You could also use the faux fur pom-poms. That would be super cute if you get a bunch of tiny ones and put those at the end of your crochet scarf. And that would be a great way to match it with a hat. If you have a hat with a faux fur pom-pom, you could add faux fur pom-poms to the end of your scarf. It would be super cute. And then one more idea with this is, instead of just doing a single pom-pom, you could stack up, say, 3 pom-poms and make like a little pom-pom chain hanging there. I don't know if that makes sense the way I'm saying it. Basically, you'd stitch them together and you'd have, say, 3 pom-poms stacked up in each spot versus just an individual pom-pom across. And lastly, idea number 4 is to add a fabric fringe to the ends of your scarves. So in the tutorial for this process, I share how I took an old t-shirt and sewed it onto the ends of my scarf. So this is a great idea where if you totally run out of yarn and you can't add yarn tassels, or you can't add yarn fringe, or you can't add yarn pom-poms, you can find a totally different medium to use, and you don't necessarily have to go spend money on it because you can find an old t-shirt, cut it up, and make your tassels. This one I think really gives the scarves the most unique texture combination because the weave of the material itself isn't handmade, so you're going to just have some built-in texture differences, which I think is really fun. I went with a t-shirt material, but you of course could use something like felt. That would be really neat to do at the ends. And then one more idea with this is instead of sewing it onto the ends, you could punch holes in your fabric and then work your stitches directly into it at the start and the end, and then you could cut out the sewing part completely. But there you have it. Those are 4 ways to add extra length to your handmade scarves without crocheting or knitting additional rows. If you want to get a more in-depth look at how to add any of those ends to the scarves, be sure to click the cards or in the description down below. Somewhere it'll pop up with the links to those videos. I've got it all together in a playlist so you can check out those ideas and see step-by-step tutorials so you can easily add those details to your own scarves. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Happy crafting!